Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be unboxing and taking a look at the Proko Anatomy skull. So bear with me 1 second whilst I get this out the box. So you can see it's quite secure and nicely packaged. I can't imagine it being able to get damaged easily in transit. So when you order this, it says that it can take 8 to 10 weeks to arrive. I'm in the UK and this came from China and it took about 3 weeks for me. So let's take a quick look at the box. We've got the image of the skull on the front, and then around the sides it just says Anatomical Skull and Proko. So for those of you who are not familiar with Proko, I will put a link in the description box below to the YouTube channel. It's probably the best learning resource for artists around by far. So taking a look at the back, we've got Anatomical Skull, built-in tripod socket. I'm hoping it fits one like this because I happen to have this lying around, but we'll test that shortly. Average proportions for artists based on the Loomis head. So that's the Andrew Loomis method of drawing the head, which a lot of us are familiar with. Anatomically correct male skull, removable magnetic jaw, and it's approximately about 4 inches. So let's get this out and take a proper look. So there's a little bit of information there about using the tripod and a thank you and just how to use the product in general. You can pause that if you want to have a read through. Again, seems pretty well protected inside as well. And there we have it. Oh, that's actually a lot heavier than I expected. It's actually bigger than I thought as well, because I've seen a lot of people complaining that the biggest drawback of this is that it's too small, which, you know, it is still small, but it's bigger and heavier than I expected. Grab this bottom jaw out as well. So I should have actually read... Oh, I was going to say I should have read the instructions properly first, but it seems to just clip in place anyway magnetically, so that's really cool. Honestly, it feels a lot more expensive than I was expecting. I don't know if that's due to the weight, but yeah, that's really good. I'm quite impressed with that. I know from watching Proko's other videos, or when he first released this, he mentioned just sticking something in its mouth if you wanted to study it with an open jaw. So like a little, I don't know, an eraser or something. So it's pretty cool that it stays hooked on, and it looks like you could open it quite far as well. It seems to fall off around that point there, but I don't think many people are going to be opening their mouth quite as wide as that. And it's even extremely, well, anatomical or anatomically correct underneath here. I'm saying that, I wouldn't actually know if it was right or wrong. That's pretty cool, but for me as an artist, I'm probably not going to need these bits, so maybe a little bit unnecessary. But the rest of it, yeah, really cool. So one thing I was going to say to be aware of was these bits here are quite thin. It still feels pretty solidly built, but you would obviously have to be careful with them not to damage them. I've just read the little leaflet that came with it, and it says when attaching to the tripod, you have to be especially careful of those bits. So at a glance, it looks like this will fit. This was just a really cheap old tripod that I bought years back. However, one thing I am wondering is whether this tripod is actually going to be strong enough to support the skull. Okay, so it attaches quite far on the back, so just bear that in mind for the weight bearing aspect of it. This tripod is probably too weak for it, to be honest. It does say that he recommends some on his website. That being said, it does do the job. And of course, the benefit to the tripod is so that you can put the skull in different positions to study from. So 3/4 angles and various extreme angles, I guess. Difficult to show from this angle, but if you are using a really cheap tripod like this, just bear in mind if it tips at all, it will take the whole thing with it. So just be careful with it really. But it still seems usable so far. I will report back on that in the description below once I've actually had time to play around with it more. So I'm going to have a really quick go at actually drawing using this as reference now, and we'll talk about things like the price. Okay, so please remember this is the first time that I'm drawing from this skull. To be honest, I wasn't really sure where to start, but I thought maybe a front view would be a good place, and I started working digitally using like the Loomis method. And you have to remember that's one of the benefits of this skull is it's based on the proportions of the Andrew Loomis method. So it just makes sense that that would be a good starting point. I actually think there might be a image of the skull with the Loomis proportions around it on the Proko website. And one thing I will say is that drawing skulls is much more difficult than I realised. I have drawn some before, working from photos, but I thought it's time that I actually started learning and understanding what it is I'm actually drawing. I think it's going to be quite a slow process for me, But I am excited to start the journey, and I will say that these did turn out pretty good, everything considering. So let's talk a little bit about the price. I believe that at the time of me buying this, it was about $99. So I'm in the UK, but there wasn't a shipping fee. However, there was $20 tax on there. So in total, that was about $120. I can't remember what the conversion rate was, maybe £85 or something. So it is quite expensive. And I've seen people online debating whether you're better to just buy a cheap skull that they might use for, learning medical anatomy and things like that. And maybe that is the case, I'm not sure. I couldn't find anything decent online. But without repeating myself too much, I like that this is based on the Andrew Loomis proportions. On top of that, I do trust Proko as a brand. I believe if anyone can make things that help artists, it would be Stan from Proko. You might notice that on this side view, I actually did get the proportions wrong a little bit. I struggled more with this one than I was expecting. I normally am quite good at drawing the face from the side, but drawing the skull from the side profile was more difficult than I expected. I think it was the eye socket that I got wrong. Aside from that, I think some of the actual proportions are off a little bit, but it could have been worse. One thing worth mentioning, if any of you guys have drawn skulls, you probably already know this, but one of the most annoying things to draw about it would be all of the teeth. For example, on this side view, I left too much space. I might even have an extra tooth on there, don't quote me. So it's not perfect. I think I want to start learning how to simplify the skull a little bit more and actually learning from it as opposed to just trying to make it look the same for no reason, if that makes sense. And I wanted to mention whether this skull is good to actually use studying from life or whether it's better to take photos of it. Now, I think one of the arguments for the skull is probably that you can use this as a life study. But again, that's where some people think it's a little bit too small. For me, I will be trying to use it like that, but I think I'm going to end up taking a lot of photos of it, maybe setting up different lighting, different angles, etc. But even when studying like that, I will still have the skull to hand to be able to see and learn from it better. So I think there's value in both. I just can see myself taking more photos of it than I can studying from life overall. But that's just my opinion. Either way, I think it has a lot of value. And whilst learning how to draw a skull well isn't something I've always been too excited about, I do think it is quite important to learn. And that's one of the reasons I bought this, almost to make myself do that. I really want to improve my portraits, and I figured starting with a skull is a really good place, and because I've spent a lot of money on it, maybe that'll force me to do it even more. So I really want to get the most out of this, maybe learn myself how to simplify some of the shapes, draw the skull a bit quicker, learn where everything is, how to draw them from different angles, the proportions. And if I am successful with this, I would like to record more videos, almost showing you guys what I'm learning as I'm learning it. If it can help others as well, it might be quite a good learning experience. So what I'm saying is I am open to future video ideas, if you guys have any, of how we can use this skull to learn from it. Even if it's just setting the skull up with different lighting situations and recording a video that people can use to study from, using it for reference. One thing to point out is I did actually get some of the proportions wrong on the jaw on this last one, so I do make some minor tweaks off camera. So let's finish with, is the skull worth buying? Is it worth the money? And to me, the answer would be yes, if you're going to put a lot of hours into studying from it and learning from it, it's well worth it. No, if you're only going to use it once or twice to draw from and it's going to live in a box after that. So it's really quite an individual question. You could definitely learn how to draw the face and even skulls without this model. But for me, my hope is that it will make it a little bit quicker and give me a better understanding. So in that respect, I think it's worth it. But let me know in the comments below if you guys have found a good alternative, maybe a cheaper version online. And don't forget to let me know what content you guys want to see next. And as always, if you did like this video or find it useful, please hit that thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on for future content. Thanks for watching, everyone.